One day I went to the VA in Manhattan, I guess on a claim, and on the second floor they had an exhibit that covered all the wars.
Yeah.
And I saw a photograph of Tom Keppen. It was in a glass case, and above the photograph was a quotation from a Marine general. I'm going to read it to you. His name is Major General Bruno A. Hochberg, and this was the quotation. He was my commanding officer, 3rd Marine Division, while I was there. Quote, "My heart goes out to the mothers who bore these young fighting men and had to raise them growing up, feed them, educate them, and had to see them come to this foolish war. My heart bleeds for the mothers. These young men are the bravest we have ever seen in my lifetime." Major General Bruno A. Hochberg was killed in a helicopter explosion on November 14, 1967. But underneath him, this quote was Lieutenant Keppen just moments before he got killed. Thomas Keppen in maybe December 1967. He's a young lieutenant that joined Bravo Company. I was with Bravo Company at the time as a platoon leader, rifle platoon leader. He's very quiet, very smart. Yeah. July 68, Tom was still with Bravo Company, but now I was with Charlie Company, and I was the XO of Charlie Company. And on the end of April, very end, 30 days in April, a big battle started way up north, on the north side of the Quang, just maybe 2 miles or maybe less from the DMZ. The 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines were in a huge battle with a part of a North Vietnamese division. My company, Charlie Company, was right across the river from where they were fighting. I mean, maybe a quarter of a mile away they were fighting. We were right there. But for some reason, the commanders decided to take Bravo Company and bring them around us on Amtraks and then cross the Quang. And we were there. We were there. We were the closest unit to the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, but Bravo Company went in, and for some reason they were sitting on their Amtraks rather than inside. And they got ambushed halfway across. It was horrible. They hit the shore, they made a landing. Within 1 minute, I say, the company commander, who I knew very well, George Norris, was killed. My company, Charlie Company, was on the other side of the Quang River. We had, our headquarter group was in a really big Buddhist temple. I mean, really thick walls. And I was listening to the traffic, the radio traffic that was going on from everyone involved. And one battalion commander, I think he was from the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, had already been medevaced. He had been wounded, but he was talking to Tom Keppen. And he was telling him to hold on. Calm down, hold on, we'll get to you. And Tom did. They held through the night. The next day, we went over. And we relieved the 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines in their place. They were basically decimated, just like you've seen in a movie. We walked through their lines, and we didn't expect, as we advanced, we started finding Marine bodies, and we came across a ditch that was about 30 feet long, about 5 feet deep, and maybe 6 feet wide. It was filled with dead Marines. But every one of them was in a fighting position. They had their weapons out, and they were all killed with multiple small arm wounds, but they fell right where they were. The NVA were pulling back so fast they didn't take their weapons, they didn't mutilate them, they were just gone. I was with the Point Platoon on Charlie Company. We were the first ones to find the bodies like that. And I watched our chaplain, each battalion has one chaplain, climb down into the ditch and closed the Marine's eyes with his index finger and his pinky, close all their eyes. Contrary to what people believe, people die with their eyes open. So we continued the advance and we came across another Marine who had been captured and tied with, I guess, some kind of wire. His arms tied so tight behind him that his elbows were touching. He was blindfolded and shot in the back of the head. We continued the advance. Actually, we just were lucky, I guess. We were advancing to a Buddhist graveyard. It was probably a city block wide and probably 400 meters long. Our whole company was in a Buddhist graveyard. It must have been poor Buddhists. Every mound was like about 12 feet high, very big. So we had great cover. And we're advancing to where the NVA are. And it's obvious that they're going to stay and fight because this was like today. Temperature was nice, the sun was out, the rice paddies were all dry, and they're massing right in front of us, and they're not going anywhere. So we get to the other end of the graveyard, and sure enough, they're waiting for us, and a horrendous firefight starts. But the other company on our right, Delta, gets as they just about to reach the edge of the Ville, they get ambushed, and they're all pinned down. So we were in the graveyard. We got great cover, and it's at this point we can clearly see them, and they can clearly see us. We're pinned down in the graveyard all day long. So long that I was able to write a letter to my dad. I wrote a long letter to my dad what was going on until a machine gun on our flank saw us and opened up, and almost like, it's crazy. But anyhow, we're in a serious firefight, and we got great cover. And we're calling in supporting arms. That means we're calling in fighter jets, we're calling in artillery, we're calling in gunships. And the front turns into a solid mass of brown dirt, hundreds of yards long and a couple, 100 or yards up in the air. But every time you looked forward, you would see NVA moving around. They were trying to get closer and closer. After a while, all day long we were in contact with a forward air observer. This is a Marine pilot who also was served with us. We knew him. His name was Kendrick. He was circling around the battlefield, and he radioed down to us, and I was nearby the captain, and I could hear what he was saying, and he said, "You have to pull back. There are thousands of them coming at you. Thousands." And Captain Doctoroff looked over at me, he said, "Joe, we're pulling back. You and the gunny stay back and make sure all our Marines are out of this area." So we started pulling back, and all of a sudden me and the gunny were by ourselves in the graveyard, and then the NVA were coming into the graveyard, and we had to go about 300 yards to get to where the Marines went back to. And it was maybe the most terrifying moments of my life, turning my back to the enemy and covering the gunny and him covering me, like we're running back and forth and firing at them, they're firing at us. And every time I turned my back, I thought I was going to get shot in the back. I finally made it back to the Marine lines, and as I was coming out of the graveyard, or near the end, I heard 2 shotgun blasts. And there was only one Marine in the whole battalion that carried a shotgun. His name was Rich Higgins, Lieutenant Higgins. And I just scooted by it, and I got on line with the rest of the Marines. And we were facing outward, facing the enemy. And it was serious. I mean, I got down on my knee, I'm looking out, and they just shot one of our helicopters down. Higgins walks up and he says, "Joe, you know what just happened?" I said, "No, what happened?" He said, "I got two of them, they were right behind you." I didn't realize that not only were they chasing me this way, they were coming this way. All right. The next day we continued the battle and we got up to our objective. Well, actually overnight they disappeared. We got up to the objective and what we found was we had turned these villages into, it looked like just craters. Just craters. Everything was destroyed. There were some NVA prisoners that were alive in their bunkers that we took. And so Keppen was with Bravo 1 at the time. He was lucky he lived through that. That night on the objective, Captain Dockendorf said, "They know where we are. They can see us. So we're going to dig in. They're going to see us digging in, and we're going to shift our position. We're going to go to the left." So we did. We dug in, and then dark, we moved to the other side, moved about 100 yards to the left, and sure enough, the moon came out, and there they are, coming right at us. So I guess a recon patrol. And we could clearly see them, but they can't see us. And we don't want to give our position away, so the captain's saying to everyone, "Hold your fire." And we kept getting radio back. They're really close. They're really close. They're in the lines. And a Marine grabbed, one of them and stabbed them, and then the rest turned around and left. But we could clearly see them. We didn't bother shooting them. We could clearly see them, about 20 of them walking right at us in single file. All right, so Keppen survived that ambush. Comes July, so that was May. Comes July, 1968, I'm a short timer. It's actually on July 7th. I'm going home, I believe, on July 23rd. And battalion commander is trying to cut me a break. So he sent me down south to investigate a Marine that says he was shot by accident, or battalion commander didn't believe him. So I had to go all the way down south. To me, it was like a vacation, going all the way down south to July. There was there was nothing there. I slept in a bed, I went to restaurants, I interviewed the Marine, and he just maintained, it was an accident. I didn't do it on purpose. And the battalion commander wanted me to get him to admit that he did it on purpose. And I said to myself, you know what? If this guy was so frightened that he shot himself, you don't want him around us. We don't want him around us. So, all right, an accident, you're on your way home. You're not going to get court-martialed. And I went back up. When I got back up, I found out that Keppen had been killed on July 7th. And someone had taken a photograph of him. I think it was a radio operator. He was kneeling down, facing north. And a few seconds later, he was hit directly by an artillery shell. And they say it turned his body inside out. So he had been there since December. And he was a seasoned, rifle platoon commander, intelligent, quiet. And there was his photograph taken. And someone told me to inventory his sea bag. We all came over with a lot, with gear, and we put them in sea bags, and they were kept in the rear somewhere. And they said, interview Lieutenant Keppen's sea bag. I had never done this before. I didn't even know they did things like this. So I got a sea bag, it's about that high, and I'm going through the whole sea bag. I'm itemizing every single thing he has in a sea bag, and at the very bottom, there's a packet of letters. And I opened up the packet, and I realized they were all letters from grade school children. He was a teacher. And that explains somewhat his good nature. Because he was very quiet, very humble, but really smart. He was never afraid, I don't think. But, he was from Indiana. He was 2 years younger than me, so he was probably 22 when he got killed. I was 24.